A common question that I receive, and actually someone reached out this morning with the same question, so I thought it would be good timing to answer it. The question is, and it's a very good question, I think it really is a normal question at least 50 to 60% of the time in situations where there's been infidelity, is the betrayed spouse is really struggling to answer the question of, why won't my unfaithful spouse show initiative in the recovery process? After all, they're the ones that's cheated or had an affair or had an addiction. They're the ones that have been acting out. Why won't they show some leadership? Why won't they drive the bus of recovery, if you will? Why won't they take the lead and pursue recovery? Do research, find expert help, find a therapist, find a safe place, do something. Why won't they instigate these conversations to help me, the betrayed, heal? It's a very common question. You may have asked one or all of those questions at any given time, and so today I'd like to provide a framework as to why it's very common, extremely normal, and at some level to be expected that the unfaithful spouse won't necessarily show a lot of initiative in the beginning stages. Like most answers when it comes to infidelity, it's not a simple, straightforward, well, this is the reason. There's actually probably about 5 different pillars that will speak to the reason behind a lack of initiative from the unfaithful spouse. This isn't going to be an exhaustive list. I try to keep these videos at some level manageable in terms of time. Some of you laughed at that because they can get long, and I certainly understand that, and we're trying to keep them shorter, but we want to give you as much information. I want to give you as much information as I can, because when you're in crisis, you want answers, you want compassion, you want understanding. So I think the answer to this question typically falls within one of these 5 different pillars. While there are 5 different pillars, every situation is different. And your situation is probably going to have some very unique nuances to it, but I think it, with respect to the unique nuances, will meet one of these 5 criteria. Number 1 is typically the unfaithful, male or female, is enveloped with incredible shame or condemnation. They probably never thought they were going to get caught, or they dreaded the day that they thought that they were going to get caught, and it finally has happened. They may hate themselves. They're embarrassed. They're humiliated. If they're a public figure, the public shame or even the denouncing of their title or their position is so overwhelming. They are in a sea of shame and condemnation. The problem with shame is it makes us about ourselves. It causes us to focus on what we have lost, what we are experiencing, our pain, our shame, our humiliation, our negative consequences, instead of our spouses, instead of the true victim. And when we experience this shame, this condemnation, it causes us to not want to lead, to not want to rise up and face the music, to not want to have a face-to-face conversation with our consequences, because we're so embarrassed, we're so ashamed. This is not a cry for, oh, feel sorry for the unfaithful, or, oh, poor unfaithful. Not at all. I'm merely explaining what we as an unfaithful spouse go through when our addiction or affair finally comes out. Another reason that we may not take a significant amount of initiative is we're ambivalent. We don't know if we want to save the marriage. We don't know if we want to pursue our affair partner. We don't know if we want to pursue restoration, so we don't take a lot of initiative. There's not a lot of drive in our recovery. We feel, and it's an error, but we feel as though, well, I'm not sure about what to do about the marriage, so I just won't do anything. I'll just kind of let things play out. And we fall prey to a huge mistake, because there is recovery work that you can do even if you're unsure about the marriage. You can still pursue healing for yourself. You can pursue clarity. You can pursue insight. You can get expert help to formulate that decision, not just make your decision upon emotion or feeling or the changes of the status of our marriage, but staying with the point. If we're ambivalent, we're probably not going to take a lot of leadership with recovery work. Number 3, and this one is kind of tough to hear for a betrayed. If we're filled with resentment, if we're still filled with anger towards you, the betrayed, we're probably not going to show a lot of genuine leadership. We may check the box, we may just kind of do the bare minimum, but it's unlikely that we're going to lead recovery and show a lot of initiative because we may be filled with resentment. You might say, resentment for what? They're the ones that cheated. Well, it's a little bit complicated, and I'm trying to open up the mind of the unfaithful to you. Another form of resentment, or maybe even a significant part of our resentment, is we're angry at you because you're showing all this emotion, this anger, this bitterness, this resentment, but we felt like we cheated because you weren't a good spouse to us, or you weren't meeting our needs, or you weren't taking care of us, or you weren't having enough physical intimacy with us. So we feel justified in our affair. Now you're furious, and now we're angry at you for being furious. Or we're angry because we shouldn't have done what we did. Now we're angry at ourselves. We're angry at you. We're angry at everybody. It's a form of shame, yes, but it's a form of resentment that we have at ourselves, and because we can't forgive ourselves, we're kind of projecting it onto you to a certain extent. See, what's happening is we are angry that we have put ourselves in this situation, and we're not healthy enough to own it. We're not healthy enough to see the reality that we have caused this. We have done this. We could have done a million things, but we didn't. And so we're filled with resentment, and when you are full of resentment, you don't want to lead recovery, you don't want to set up appointments, you don't want to take an online course or go to an EMS weekend. We're still full of resentment. Maybe we're still full of resentment for you, towards you, because we feel like, you know what? You don't want to own anything. You don't want to acknowledge anything. And until you acknowledge that maybe you're the reason I cheated, I'm going to be angry. Now, that's not true. That's not right per se. But it's what they're feeling, and it's part of the reason why they may not show much initiative at all in recovery work. If I didn't make you a little bit uneasy or frustrated with number 4, number 5 probably will do it. So please hear this with a huge salt block, if you will. But another reason why we may not show much initiative at all in recovery work is because we might still be acting out. We may still be involved with our affair partner. We may still be looking at pornography or escorts or whatever it is that we were involved in. When you are still acting out, there isn't a confidence, a security, a sense of integrity to want to lead recovery work because we're still acting out, we're still involved, we're still caught in our addiction or our struggle. And so to think that we're going to be able to lead recovery or take initiative when we're still acting out, we're still ambivalent or what have you, it's not really going to work. We're not able to do it to a successful, meaningful level. However, there are a small percentage of people that we are unfaithful and we may seem like we're taking initiative, but we're still acting out, we're still involved. And so it may seem genuine, but that's why it's not really hitting. It's not really connecting. It's not really going to the depths of our being and our heart, which is why we can be very involved in recovery work, but not have a lot of fruit, not have a lot of genuine contrition, brokenness, or humility. Number 5 is really kind of to help sum up the other 4 and put them into maybe one big box is we haven't really had expert help. And general help or kind of a little help here, a little help there is just not going to do it. You know, I hear betrayed spouses say all the time, they should just know they caused this atrocity. They should just know that they should lead. And I'm sorry, that's not true. let me kind of make it very plain for you, is that our moral compass has been broken. We've cheated, or we've been cheating. We've maybe cheated over a year, 2 years, 6 months, a one-night stand, or decades. So our moral compass at some level is pretty broken. So you expecting us to just know that we should lead when we've got a broken moral compass that we use to justify our affairs, we're going to use that to justify almost anything in our life, because our moral compass, our moral reasoning is off. And so if you think we're healthy enough to lead recovery when we're unhealthy enough to justify our affair or affairs or addiction, it doesn't compute, and I hope that you can see that. And so the fifth pillar is just this lack of expert help. You see, without expert help, someone who's an expert, who's been through infidelity, who's been treating it for at least a decade or 2 or 3, is really going to get to the bottom of what's going on. That's why I so frequently recommend our EMS weekend or our Hope for Healing course at affairrecovery.com. General help typically, especially in a situation like this where you may be getting help but there's no initiative, general help is just insufficient. Expert help is what's really going to be key, because we don't just know that we should lead. And in kind of summation, we're just not getting it. You see, without the right help, we're not going to typically get it. We'll be busy, but we won't be effective. We'll kind of talk and speak, and we'll be checking boxes, but it won't really hit the core of who we are. And as so many of you betrayed talk about, we're not getting it. And the problem is us. But there are other problems to address, like we don't have expert help in place, and we're not safe. And so if we keep doing what we're doing, it's probably only going to frustrate you more. It's only going to infuriate you more, because we're not taking initiative. You see, for us, we just hope that you're not going to talk about it. We just hope that you'll not keep talking about it, that we'll come home from work or come home from wherever, and we'll be able to have dinner, watch TV, or do our normal thing, and you'll never talk about it once, you'll never have a trigger, not have a reminder, not have to talk about any recovery work. We just kind of get in this fearful position of, man, I just hope that he or she does not talk about it. Yes, it's running from it. Yes, it's dysfunctional, but it's where we're at. I think what's vital is to get to a safe place that's an expert-driven place, like the EMS Weekend or Hope for Healing, where you can be with people who know what they're doing, who are experts and who have been through it themselves. Eventually, I truly believe if someone wants to get it, if someone who's an unfaithful wants to get it and wants to be safe, they'll do whatever it takes. But these pillars have to be addressed. For me, early on, I was full of shame. I was absolutely full of resentment. I was completely lost, angry at myself, angry at Samantha for seemingly making me have to go outside the marriage. I mean, I was angry at God. I was angry at everybody. I was swallowed in fear and confusion and just a despair that I could spend 30 minutes talking about it. The answer for me was being able to go to an EMS weekend, meet with Rick periodically, and talk to my mentor. They were experts. They had been through it. They were constantly helping me come face to face with my own choices, my own consequences, and helping to provide a way out of the dysfunction that I was in mentally, emotionally, and really even spiritually.